I think that my most uh, my happiest moment with him has been the way he's stacked up against the better point guards in the league. Rose came in, he handled. I mean, he didn't beat Rose, he didn't outproduce him. He stood toe to toe with him. It was fine. He did the same with Westbrook in his minutes against him. Did the same with Tony Parker, who's still very good. It doesn't matter who he's facing. He is going against them because he's poised. He's been a pro for 6 years in another league. How different is the feel that he gives to this team because of that compared to last year or the years before?
Because of the way that he stacks up against elite point guards.
Just the confidence and the structure he brings no matter what the matchup is.
It means a lot because I think what we really need to take into consideration is that we were operating under the Kurt Rambis experiment for the last 2 years. So everything needs to be viewed through that lens. And I mean, even a player like Luke Ridnour, everybody's saying there's been a Luke Ridnour effect from Ricky Rubio. He's passing with more flair. He's playing with more excitement. When in actuality, he's just been freed from the constraints of the triangle, and he is free to be the player that he's capable of being also. So it's tough to say unless, Kurt Rambis was coaching Ricky Rubio the last 2 years, which would be like giving a chew toy to a pit bull. Not a good thing.
My last question for you before I hand you off to Ethan. Wayne Ellington, kind of your guy. He's played very well. He seems to be just in perfect spots for Rubio all the time. How happy are you to see him excelling in the last week or so?
I enjoy Wayne because he's in an NBA locker rooms and you're dealing with star players. There's a lot of egos and a lot of machismo in the room. And the guys who are, towards the end of the bench, the 9th through 12th men, they can't afford to have that ego. They're just a guy going through their job just like you and I. So they're easier to converse with, and you just develop more of a rapport with them, and then you like to see them do well. I think Wayne is an undersized guard. I think that he has some limitations, but given his shot and given his IQ and his hustle or his moxie, whatever the fuck you want to call it, he's in a position to do well. I don't know how long he will stick around because obviously we need a more capable two guard, but I do like to see him performing well under the circumstances.
Hey Myles, you sent me, I think, was it last week, a piece by Ben Polk on the great Ben Polk, whom I recommend that you all read, on how perceptions of Kevin Love are altered because of his whiteness. And I wrote about this topic, and people have been asking me on Twitter, and I don't even know how I feel about this issue. Do you think that he gets the max if he gets the max more readily if he's not white? Do you think that impacts perhaps our conversation in this max salary? Is he discriminated against, Myles?
It's tough to say because if he were black, we need to take a whole host of things into consideration, like the elephant in the room, his athleticism. He might be a completely different player if he were not white. However, there are things for him that are working because he is white. Considering that we live in Minneapolis and it's a predominantly white city, he's more appealing to fans. And we always need to acknowledge that, you know what, there are a lot of white NBA fans who want to see another great white player succeed. So as much as he's operating under some limitations, they are also working in his favor. It's kind of a double-edged sword.
Yeah, I think that's a double-edged sword that a lot of white players have, where fans better empathize with them and see them as closer to themselves, but at the same time, that informs assumptions about their athleticism and what they're capable of. Speaking of fandom, I'm wondering, has your fandom at all been tarnished? Have you become more jaded from having better access to the team? Because I know, speaking personally, it was easier to have an unadulterated enthusiasm for the Warriors before getting some access, and once you actually see how the sausage is made, it's a bit different. So, how has your fandom changed with access?
With this team in particular, I think it's been enhanced just because we have a really enjoyable collection of personalities on the Timberwolves. I mean, Kevin Love, as far as all-star caliber players go, is one of the more refreshing interviews in the league. He is very, I don't know, humble, approachable, accessible, and you can joke around. You can shoot the shit with the guy, and you don't ever feel like you're infringing on his time. Michael Beasley is Michael Beasley, which is always a bag of fun. Ricky Rubio is, I don't know, I've only talked to him a couple times, but he's enjoyable as long as you don't stare too deeply into his eyes, because then, I don't know, I start to have feelings that I'm not comfortable with.
Could you unpack some of that? Could you...
So
Could you
true.
get into that?
cannot
Well,
lose.
here's something I want to know about Ricky Rubio in person. On draft night, my claim to fame that I remind everybody about is that I was with Ricky Rubio and dragging him through the media phalanx for hours and hours and hours when I was working for the NBA. And he seemed completely freaked out. He seemed like a shrinking violet. Fair or unfair, it made me think that he wouldn't have that kind of star charisma and confidence, which is some stupid armchair psychology on my part. Does Ricky Rubio project a sense of confidence and comfort in person today when you see him?
I think that he's a professional. He approaches things as a professional. I mean, from his quotes to his dress to his timeliness and performance. So the whole, I don't know, it's tough to say because he is still a kid. And you get the impression that he is kind of shy, and he's alluded to that. And then you read things like Lee Jenkins' story in SI on him, and I found out he has a teddy bear collection. And that you know, it gives you a little bit of insight into what kind of person that you're dealing with, in the sense that he might be a bit overwhelmed by all of the attention that he's receiving. He just wants to play basketball and succeed, but he doesn't want to be buried under a mountain of expectations. So I think that he's more astute than he lets on. However, there are some levels of shyness and uncomfort that he needs to deal with.
Huh.
Nice. Well, a very good breakdown from someone who is in the locker room pretty much every day with these guys. And we always appreciate the insight. I mean, not every day. Every game, 40 times a year, 34 times a year. Zach, you're on your computer the whole time, so it's different.
Your face is on your computer.
Probably.
Well,
it is right now, anyway. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Myles. We'll catch you later. You can follow him, m.brown at Twitter.
Thank you, gentlemen.
See you, Myles.
All right. Interesting
like
insight from Myles there at the end,
entire
because he, when Rubio was coming over, everyone was worried, like he wants to be in the big market. He wants to play in New York or whatever. And he sounds like a guy who might actually be very well suited to the pace of life and fandom and stardom that comes in a place like Minnesota.